So I played AI Limit, and oh man. Let me start off by saying I like to delve into the Souls-like genre from time to time. I've played through a lot of them in my life, with my most recent before this game being Lies of P. But that's besides the point. We're here to talk about AI Limit, so let's just dive right in, shall we? AI Limit is a Souls-like action RPG developed by Sense Games and published by CE Asia. In the game, we play as a blader with amnesia named Orisa, who's traveling a post-apocalyptic land, piecing together her memories through fragments in a world filled with these robot dudes and monsters known as Necros. On her journey of repairing branches, she's also tasked with helping out various people in the bleak world as well. Certain people have their own optional subquests, some of which can be beneficial to make sections of the game easier to deal with as well, with some of the NPCs even aiding Orisa in battle. While I don't necessarily think the main story is anything too engrossing, I mean, you're pretty much just a mud person. Like, what? I think there's something to be said about the NPCs that help you out. It's interesting striking up conversations with them as you see them on your travels. Probably the most interesting, in my opinion, were the stories that involve Shirley and this doctor dude, Adremelik, and this robot with him named Assis, who at one point tells us he was a human, but this turns out to be a lie. What really makes these ones stand out is really the vibes and backstory. Every time we see Shirley, she seems to be losing it more and more until this eventual point where it seems she's absolutely broken and asks us to whip her bunny rabbit into the void.
Is this mine? Thank you, Orisa. I'm sorry that I gave you your name on a whim. Thank you for bringing it to me.
It's sort of sad to see the hopelessness and lost faith of someone who initially seems cheerful upon your first meeting. But outside of Shirley and Assis, we have Adremelik, who at first glance seems like he's just going to be a regular old NPC to help provide assistance. The whole sub-story involving this dude is pretty dark, as we find out that he had been experimenting on people and using a necro spell to control them for the sake of science.
I'm the only savior! I give people weapons, restore the city, and investigate the church and Necros! Can anyone else do that?
His questline also involves one of the hardest fights that I've ever experienced with this chick named Ursula, who's an absolute baddie. Believe me when I say I may have died to this fight like 50 plus times, to the point where I was screaming profanities at my computer. For the most part, the fights aren't really too bad. There's a few here and there that are kind of rough, though honestly, I didn't really have any trouble until the boss named Cleansing Knight. I don't know what it was, but this dude was annoying, especially trying to time parries. Maybe it was because I wasn't used to the timing, or really a guy charging around as fast as this, but this thing messed me up bad. I swear, there were points where I was tempted to just give up and call it a day, but I persisted and eventually took this dude down. After Cleansing Night, it was pretty much smooth sailing aside from maybe like one of the gank fights that I died on because I wasn't expecting to fight anything. This really plays into the world design too. I honestly went into this game assuming it was going to be like Code Vein or something, but outside of the art style, AI Limit really does its own things in some ways and heavily takes from other Soulsborns and others. Generally, there are branches, which are AI Limit's versions of Dark Souls bonfires, before every fight, so it's better to rest at everyone you see if it looks like you're about to enter a big arena or something if you're out of mud balls, which is basically like life gems from Dark Souls 2, or Life Dew, which is the game's version of Estus flasks. I think one of the few exceptions was that gank fight, the Hunter Squad, which I kind of just ziplined into, having blown away most of my resources. It's like, what am I supposed to do about that? The fight was easy when I went through it a second time, but let me tell you, running back to this place sucked. It's one of those obligatory poisoning swamp areas that, if you've played any Dark Souls game, you almost immediately recognize. This one in particular isn't horrible, but it still sucks. I spent maybe an hour trying to find all the items in the area, believing there wasn't even going to be a boss in the zone too. Granted, Hunter Squad was pretty unremarkable, but still. This game really banks on its secretive stuff, with a lot of it feeling like it could be highly missable if you're not constantly looking out, because you never know where there could be something. man. I mean, hell, even that Ursula fight I could see being missed by a lot of people due to it being so unconventional to even get to. You pretty much need to have a lot of health to even survive falling onto these pipes. However, once you're down there, it's smooth sailing. Just be sure to get the branch in the area. Actually, that's another thing too. This isn't the only area that requires falling down from great heights, something that's incredibly tense. Really, when you figure out that there's a lot of hidden drops that you can fall into, it makes you wonder what other kind of stuff you might have missed out on in the game. Most of AI Limit is linear at least, though there's a lot of branching paths that lead to items. For the most part though, it's not too bad. What I'd also like to add is that the combat in the game feels really smooth. The spells and the weapon abilities all feel useful in some regards. Every weapon has its own unique ability, and different spells can be obtained by either finding them or by purchasing them using crystals and nucleuses that are obtained from bosses. For probably half of the game, I stuck with using this scythe, which had this ability where you threw it, causing it to spin around and damage anything that's in its area of attack. However, I eventually changed to the red deer katana. This thing had a cool fire attack that felt pretty beast. In the same vein as Dark Souls, you can also enhance the weapons and make them stronger too. I think in that regard, the game feels similar where stats to damage don't necessarily feel as beneficial as upgrading your weaponry. It's what you'd expect from a Souls-like game for the most part, though there is a major difference in some areas. For starters, you don't have to worry about carry weight or encumbrance. This means that you could roll away to your heart's content, though you'll probably find pretty fast that you might need to learn how to parry in the game for some fights. The other difference is that there's no stamina in the game. I mean, what? That's crazy, right? Yeah. You instead have this mud stuff that controls how much you can use weapon abilities and magic. However, you can't actually regain it by attacking enemies, so it's not really too bad. I think I actually prefer this because it makes the game feel like it rewards being aggressive more, though you can still get messed up if you're not careful. I don't want it to get too ranty, but I'll add that maybe a bit more variety to the levels could have been better. It feels like you're mostly in sewers and underground areas. Like, I get it, it's a post-apocalyptic game, but come on. I feel like this gray palette is stained into my eyes because like more than half of the game uses the color. It gets to the point where anything other than sewers becomes visually appealing, but still meh. I'll take more desert or even this lame tower any day over 1 minute inside of the sewers. I think the gist of AI Limit is there's a lot of stuff that the game does well, but it still gives off vibes with the game being a little eh. Don't get me wrong, I think the game is quite good, but really, it's just taking elements of a lot of other Souls-likes, which I think might bother someone who's exhausted with the traditional Souls formula. I think what AI Limit does, it does well, but it doesn't really offer anything groundbreaking. You'll experience unique bosses and what have you, but the game doesn't really do anything to differentiate itself all that much from games we already have. And really, aside from maybe a couple of bosses, the game isn't all that difficult either. It's relatively casual, which I guess could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the person playing. I guess another thing is that some of the art is really weird. I swear it feels like some of the stuff in the game doesn't even belong in it, as if there was multiple people designing everything and then they just slapped it together. I think this could be excused for the most part, but yeah, it's weird. I don't want to sound too nitpicky either because I did like AI Limit a lot. It was just certain aspects of the game bugged me, you know? I mean, I can overlook most of the repeating enemy types and what have you, but I think this sort of repetition could bother someone since it does start to feel like you see the same things quite a bit. But that's really all I had to say about AI Limit. So what else can I add? I think in terms of Souls-likes, this is a very casual game. I'd say that maybe it's a bit more difficult than something like Code Vein's first playthrough, but it's definitely easier than all of the Dark Souls games and even Elden Ring. Where it does well is really the combat side. I think the mud energy stuff is a cool idea, though I think that maybe some of the bosses could have been better. Probably just like throwaways or something, since you eventually see a few of them end up as normal enemies. Oh well. Regardless, if you're looking for another Souls-like game to play through, AI Limit is an okay option. Sure, sure it could be better in some areas, and yeah, only a few really tough bosses, but honestly, it's still a fine game overall. In the 20 hours that I spent playing it, I can personally say that I liked it, and I'd really like to see this company build off of this game, because in an era where it seems like 90% of games are open world, AI Limit is somewhat of a breath of fresh air since it doesn't follow that trend. Sure, it's not overly special, but it's a nice change of pace, and I can at least applaud it for that. But anyways, all I really have to say is that AI Limit is a pretty alright game, and that's just fine. Thank you all for watching. I know the end might have seemed like I was doing a bit of ranting, but I did like AI Limit. It was a fun enough game with some flaws, but for the most part, it was enjoyable enough. So anyways, I'd like to hear what y'all think in the comments if you've played the game. Also, why not give a like and also subscribe too if you already haven't. We'll be back with more soon enough, so stay tuned. Until next time, peace out.